Well, thank you so much, and a good afternoon as well to the viewers. Certainly quite a busy 5 days that we have had here at Nasrec, and as we see things start to wind down, the media, all of them also starting to really move towards packing up and getting out. We are still waiting though for a press briefing that's set to take place, as well as an address by President Cyril Ramaphosa, leader of the party, just to wrap things up. But you've got Fikile Mbalula also calling on members to come into plenary and for them to come in and start casting a lot of their votes. You've got delegates that are incredibly tired at this point. It has been a strenuous 2 days, with many delegates saying that they left here at around 2 o'clock this morning. So exhausted delegates and exhausted analysts as well. But important work that has been done here, where the party has elected its top 7. But what are going to be the economic implications of this leadership race? And also from a policy point of view, what is it that the ANC can do and has planned moving forward? For that, we are joined by Econ Editor Mr. Tshepo Mongoai. Good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for speaking to us.
It's a pleasure, Naledi.
I think before we actually get into some of the nitty-gritties, so you've been here throughout the conference, you've been watching it quite closely. Having looked at everything that has unfolded, the program and what it looks like, how much of the discussions taking place here do you think have been dedicated to economic policy, and has it been sufficient?
Well, economics and business issues are quite complex, and there's no way over 4 or 5 days delegates will grasp with the nitty-gritty of economic issues and be able to make a ruling and endorse. But what we are seeing is that there is an endorsement of broader policy issues on the economy. There is a broader discussions on certain policy discussions, but the economy is broad and complex. And what we need to ask is, does the ANC, does it have necessary capacity to look at whole lot of, slew of economic policies? Some are in the pipeline as bills. Some are, sitting with the director generals as what could be potential policies. But some are also out there for public comment. And that requires a lot of investment in capacity, research, and understanding of those kind of policies. I mean, we're seeing, for example, a lot of NGOs that put a lot of money, as well as the private sector, organized. They put a lot of resources to influence certain policy direction in the country, and some policy direction originate from the ANC policy conference, but the outcome eventually become something different, because there are a lot of other interests that members of cabinet are pretty much aware of.
I mean, you talk about the sort of broad approach to economic policy that the ANC takes, and I think you're hearing it as well, even in that conversation with Enoch Godongwana of the party. Essentially talking, I mean, a lot of focus on what happens with the 350 Rand grant, what happens with load shedding, and then there's the excitement that we're going to be cheering BRICS next year. Are you saying that those are the lower hanging fruit, and that perhaps what they're missing is the agility to deal with some of the changes that happen quite fast in some instances? And perhaps you can give me a few examples.
I mean, for example, we had the pension reform. There was a lot of excitement around it, that workers who've been affected by COVID will get some relief. And there's been a lot of push, especially from the ANC alliance partner, to ensure that this is realized. But you start to realize that, one area, regulators in South Africa, they take a stand against some of the government decisions. And the regulators and the private sector were involved in that particular sector. Like a pension fund, they took a stand and say this will not happen as government envisaged it. So there's a pushback, and as a result, they instructed government to say, you need to look at this, you need to re-look at it. And they put alternative policy proposal. And we've seen this happening, that the regulatory authority, who are independent in South Africa, and they operate as independent bodies that have no influence in government, they are starting to take a stand and say there are certain things that we will not happen in this country because they are looking at the broader picture of this country. They are trying to protect some areas of this economy, and it may look and seem appealing when the leaders are here and they are raising certain proposals, but the economy is quite complex and is not just about South Africa. South Africa, it's part of a broader global community, and it's a very small economy that is exposed to a whole lot of external threat.
Yeah. I think maybe to some extent South Africans also need a little bit of education actually as to the inner workings of the African National Congress in and of itself, and perhaps this is where we should have started, right? Within the party, whose responsibility is it to take some of those issues forward? So who actually drives economic policy within the ANC?
Yeah, I mean, they've released documents, but those documents don't look at various aspects. They don't make inputs again on some of the bills. I mean, we've just had the public procurement bill that is going to be coming out, revised, coming out next year, early next year.
A contentious one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's one of the areas where you would expect that the ruling party should actually, as making submissions, and those submissions, they are shared with everyone, and there is a proper direction. There is research that went into that bill. I mean, it can be any other bill. I mean, Reserve Bank, we're talking a digital currency now.
Yes, yes.
The economy, the rest of the economy, they're still in cash, especially your informal sector and small businesses. So there is almost a disjuncture in terms of the pace of developments in the economy that our regulators and our government, our national treasury, the DT are trying to catch up with. But at the same time, you still have the ANC that is still dealing with very basic issues of the economy.
Right. I had a discussion with Ustembi Sostole, who is our social media specialist here at SABC News, and this was after we saw the president of the party deliver his political statement at the beginning of the conference. And you know, as part of his delivery, he talked about how load shedding is eating into the economy. On social media, a lot of sarcasm with people saying, "Oh, did you not realize this?" And you know, it's a laughable moment, but it's also quite telling of whether or not South Africans feel that their concerns are being heard about just how much economic pressure we're in. At the end of the conference, we've appointed the leadership. What is it that the president really can say to the country that says we're about to stabilize the economy and the wrestling for leadership is over? Now we stabilize the ship.
Yeah, it depends. The government has a lot of behind-the-scenes fights, and struggles that hardly ever make it in the public, and many of us are not aware of, and they shield the rest of the country against this, you know, as cabinet minister. I mean, at times you listen to the members of parliament and you realize that there's a lot that they do not know in terms of the inner workings of cabinet, and there's a deliberate decision to shield us from that for many other reasons. Perhaps it can send a wrong message and all. And of course, there is another language that should appeal and you know, inspire confidence in many South Africans to say we are on the right track, we know what we are doing. But the problem is, South Africans, we don't want to take pain for long-term gain. It has to be, you know, good time throughout. Tell us that tomorrow will be fine. Today we are fine. But some of the decisions that government is grappling with is the fact that, you know, there's a bit of pain.
Right.
And often that pain does not appeal to the broader South Africans. And once you talk about that, you lose your appeal as a leader. And they say you must step away because we can't tolerate this. But the reality,
tough conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we must be frank and honest that there has to to be. And even the broader partners, social partner, must be able to buy into that particular pain. If it means that, workers cannot get a particular increase, if it means perhaps interest rates, we are battling with the high inflation, after a while. But those discussions in South Africa never ever appeal and never make sense. They are dismissed on the first day, and then the leader cannot at all the time promise good time,
especially when you've got an election that's coming up in 2024. But the reality, as analysts have said, that 2023 is going to be hitting our pockets quite hard as well. So let's see what the leadership does moving forward. Tshepo, thank you so much for your time.
It's a pleasure.
Tshepo Mongoai, there, SABC Economics Editor. Let's head back to studio. Zinga, back to you.